Alright, so story time about how I tried to get my boyfriend back for cheating on me, but I ended up with an STD instead. Oh boy, this one's about to be a roller coaster. Alright, so a little background information. When I was a junior in high school, I had started dating this boy named Colin, and I had met him through one of my old friends. At first, our relationship was really good. He was really sweet, very caring, and I was best friends with one of the girls that his best friend was dating, so I had fit into their friend group very well. Well, fast forward about 5 months into the relationship, he starts acting really sus. Let me give you some examples of what I mean. Now, him and I would hang out like 24/7, you know, like, but he still had time to himself to hang out with his friends and do other things. I wasn't like controlling, like, you need to hang out with me today, you need to hang out with me tomorrow, and next week too. I was not like that. But he stopped hanging out with me. Anytime that I would ask him, hey, are you coming over after school? He would make up some sort of lame ass excuse. Which, may I say, we love that for me. We really do. And he was also unadding me and adding me on Snapchat. Now, sis, if that is not a red flag, then I really don't know what is at that point. I really don't know. And when I would ask him about it, he would say, oh, my Snapchat's been glitching lately. Your Snapchat just happens to be blocking the girl that you're dating on your phone? Really? No. Like, come on, come up with something better, please. And another thing, he used to drive me to school every morning and would drive me home after school, except for on the days where he had football practice, which is completely understandable. And when I had asked him why he wasn't taking me to school every morning, he said that it was wasting too much gas, even though literally the route that he had to take to school went right past my house. Again, sis, come up with a better excuse. This is why boys just literally aren't good liars at all. Like, they like to think that they are, but they're really not. Like, and after they tell a lie, they're probably like so proud of themselves, like, oh my god, I got away with it. Like, I'm such a good liar. I could trick anybody. No you can't. We just let you think that you got away with the lie until we decide to confront you when we get all the information. Anyways, so that month, because of how he was acting, we were super on and off the whole time. I would break up with him. He would be like, whatever, I don't even care. I never wanted to be with you anyways. And then like 3 days later, he would text me and he would be like, I'm so sorry, I miss you, blah, blah, blah. And I would take him back. Because I was that girl, aka I was a fucking dumbass. Anyways, during that month of us being on and off, his best friends and my best friends would always post pictures of them out doing stuff and him with other girls. And another thing, anytime that he broke up with me, none of my friends cared enough to ask if I was okay or even invite me to hang out whenever he wasn't there. So at that point, you have to ask yourself, are they really friends? No. They're not. I would swipe up on their story and I would be like, who is that sitting with Colin? And they would say, oh, that's just one of his friends. Or they would come up with some other BS excuse. So I would go and I would stalk these girls because he was playing with my feelings, obviously. What else am I gonna do? Sit there and believe those lies? No, even if they weren't lies, they were still lies. And every time that I would look these girls up, every single one of them literally was in college. And Colin's older brother was in college at the time, and his college was probably about like maybe 40 minutes away from where we live. And every single one of those girls went to his brother's college. Well, a month after all of that crap that he put me through, things started to get better. They're having like military drills around my house. Anyways, back to the story. So like I said, things had gotten better, meaning he stopped unadding me and adding me on Snapchat. He started picking me up before school and taking me to school with him in the mornings. Everything went back to normal pretty much until the one night he was over at my house and we were watching movies, having a good time, you know, doing normal couple stuff. Well, every time that I would go on my phone, he would distract me. And at first, I'm just thinking that maybe he wants my attention, you know, maybe I should get off my phone, you know, things are finally starting to go better for us. Well, every time that I would get off my phone, he would grab it and start checking it. Or it almost looked like he was going through my phone. And I would ask him, hey, like, what the hell are you doing on my phone? And he would be like, oh, well, I just want to make sure you're not texting other dudes. which I knew was a complete lie because one, he knew that I was not like that, or at least I wasn't like that, but I was like, all right, whatever. So after the movie was over, he went back on my phone and I asked him what he was doing this time. And he said that his phone was dead and he was waiting for his mom to text me to let him know if he could sleep over or not, which didn't make sense either because he never listened to his mother. He would do whatever the hell he wanted. Well, then coincidentally his phone went off after he said it was dead. So now I'm really starting to get weirded out. I'm like, okay, what the hell is going on now? So I was like, oh, I thought you said your phone was dead. And he was like, maybe it's because I dropped my phone the other day, it's just not working right. Okay, sis. Well, then he said that he needed to use the bathroom and he asked if he could take my phone with him. And I told him no, because that's weird. Well, after 5 minutes of him begging me to let him take my phone to the bathroom with him, he got the hint and just went to the bathroom. Now, right after he went into the bathroom, I got a text from a random number and it was a spam of videos. So I sat there for a minute and I had waited for them to load. Then I see what no other girl in a relationship would like to see. It is a spam of videos of my boyfriend doing the nasty with, I kid you not, 15 other girls. And by the way, my boyfriend had taken all these videos. 15 different girls. Yeah. While I was sitting there, I looked closer at the videos and I realized that all of these videos were taken in his brother's room. His brother who was in college. And low-key, I knew these weren't all of the videos because my boyfriend went to visit his brother a lot up in college. And every time that he would go up there, he would get really effed up. So at this time, I'm super pissed off, as any other girl would be in this situation. I'm literally almost in tears and I want to murder him. And by the way, at this point, he has been in the bathroom for like 15 minutes, but I haven't even realized because of the fact that I was going through all of these videos and just putting the pieces together, or at least trying to put pieces together. So once I realized that he is still in the bathroom, I go over and I start pounding on the door and screaming at the top of my lungs. And this whole time I am trying to open the bathroom door, but it would not open. And at this point it was sounding like nobody was in there. Hint, because nobody was. Anyways, so I go and I reach above the door frame and grab the key. And I unlock the door and I'm like ready to beat the crap out of this kid. Well, when I get the door open, you guessed it, he's gone. Like, this little ass boy knew that he was about to be castrated. And if you don't know what that means, I can't explain it on here. That my window is wide open and my curtains are laying on the floor and my blinds are all broken. So that night I'm laying in bed and I'm pretty much crying myself to sleep at this point when I go and I look at the number that sent me all those videos and I realize I know exactly who it is. So about a month ago, one of the guys who was in our friend group, his name was James, he got a new girlfriend and her name was Samantha. He had added her into the group chat, and when he did that, he introduced her, but I never saved her number into my phone because I had her on Snapchat and we would always just text on there and stuff like that. And the worst part is I was actually really good friends with this girl. Like, her, out of everybody, she was the only one to invite me to hang out and stuff like that month that Colin and I were very off and on. Well, at this point I realized that every single person in that friend group did not give a single crap about me. So what did I do? I made a plan to get every single one of them back. I probably sound like a psychopath, but I had just been backstabbed by all these people that I thought were my friends, and not to mention my boyfriend also. So anyways, the next day, I'm plotting my revenge, and I ask every single one of my boyfriend's friends, aka all the boys who were in our friend group, if they wanted to hook up with me. Don't worry, not at the same time. I'm not a hoe. Maybe I am, but that's besides the point. Anyways, DeAndre, James, Dustin, and Theo, they all said yes, while Kyle, Brooke, and Tim all blocked me, which wasn't a surprise. Well, all the boys who had said yes to hooking up with me had girlfriends. Girlfriends who were in our friend group, who pretended to be my friend and actually cared about me. Well, I never told Samantha that I knew it was her who had sent me those videos, even though it was pretty obvious. Sis just was lacking a lot up here. Like, who is dumb enough to send that shit off of their own phone? I don't know, maybe someone named Samantha. Anyways, 2 days later, this girl has the audacity to invite me to her party, which ended up working out in my favor, but at the same time, like, really? I cannot stand people at all. So after she invited me, I had texted every single one of the boys who had said yes to hooking up, and I asked them if they were going to the party and if they wanted to hook up there. Every single one of them had said yes except for DeAndre, because he wasn't sure if my backstabbing piece of crap ex-boyfriend was gonna be there. Tried to do my eyeliner off camera, and once again, it has failed. Anyway, so I had went to Samantha's before the party started because the girls and I were pre-gaming, and Samantha had a really nice house. Like, sis was loaded. While we are all pre-gaming, I realized that there is a bathroom under the stairs in her basement. So I had asked her if we were going to be in the basement for this party. And she's like, no, the maid's coming tomorrow anyways. We're just gonna have it upstairs. And I don't want anybody in the basement because it leads to the garage, which is where all my dad's nice cars are. So I'm like, all right, understandable. And also this would work out perfectly for me. So fast forward about an hour into the party. One by one, I asked the boys to meet me in the downstairs bathroom so that way I could hook up with them. And I know you're probably thinking, well, how is this gonna get your ex-boyfriend back? Well, I made sure to either snap a picture or set the camera up so that way I could send these videos and pictures to my ex-boyfriend. Which not only would make him pissed off, but it would also low-key hurt his feelings because he always would say, like, my friends are so loyal. They would never do anything to me, da-da-da-da-da. Well, that night my mission was accomplished and we had all spent the night at Samantha's. Oh, did I forget to mention that I grabbed a kitchen knife and I went back down to the garage and scratched the hell out of her dad's new Mercedes-Benz? Oh, I did? Yeah, I did that. Anyways, the next day, Colin's actual best friend came to Samantha's house. And the reason why I say actual is because he was closer with him than any of the other boys in the friend group. But funny thing, I was never allowed around this best friend because he was known for screwing girls who had boyfriends. And I would have asked him to do stuff also, but my boyfriend had removed him off of my Snapchat like 2 weeks after we started dating. And this kid didn't have an Instagram, so I could not find his Snapchat anywhere. Okay, my camera died, and now I have to figure out where I was. I definitely was not gonna ask anybody in the friend group for his Snapchat or his number. So like I said, he came to Samantha's house, and him and I started talking about how Colin had stabbed me in the back and done me real dirty. So Samantha pretty much kicked us all out at around 11 a.m. because the maid was coming soon. So he had offered to give me a ride home. And of course, I said yes because you already know why. You already know why. We're not gonna act like you don't. So we get to my house and I ask him if he wants to come in and he says yeah. So we go into my house, I go into my room, I set my stuff down and we go into my basement and we start watching TV. And while we're sitting there, I just crawl over, get on top of him, and we start doing stuff. So he leaves because he was actually supposed to meet up with Colin that morning. So for the next week, I was pretty much still hooking up with Colin's friends, except for James. James started to feel really bad about cheating on Samantha. I didn't really give a crap though because there were still 3 people that I was doing crap with, so actually 4, because Colin's actual best friend and I were hooking up also, which was the most important one out of all 3 of those dingbats. So I think like a week or a week and a half later, I start having a lot of issues down there. I didn't think anything of it, but I asked my mom to make me a gyno appointment, and I just told her that my birth control was making me sick. So the week after that, I had went to the gyno, and right away, my gynecologist could tell that I had an STD. We love that for me. No, we don't. At that time in my life, I lived by the motto, shit happens, and YOLO. Let's just say I don't live by that anymore. Well, funny thing, that same day, Colin texts me asking if he can come over and we can talk. And of course, I said yes. So when he first came over, I initially thought that he had found out everything that I did with his friends, and I was going to get a lecture on how I was a hoe and every other name under the sun. But it actually was not like that at all. He said that he was sorry for everything that he put me through, and he realizes that I'm the girl that he wants to be with and that he loves. And most of those girls that he had done stuff with, that was the month when him and I were on and off. But in my opinion, that did not matter. He still screwed me over and stabbed me in the back, made me look like an idiot, but I forgave him. And we got back together. And then I had this idea. I wasn't gonna tell him that I had an STD. Nope. I was gonna give him what I had. 2 weeks later, he sends me a text. And he says, I just want to let you know I have been having issues down there. I'm going to get it checked out. You might want to get checked out too. How sweet and thoughtful of him. Oh, poor thing. So I told him, OMG, yeah, you might want to get checked out. Like, that's really serious. A few days later, he texts me and he's like, yeah, it turns out that I have an STD. And then I decide to send him all of the videos of me doing crap with all of his friends, but I didn't get a video of me doing anything with his best friend because I was like too in the moment then. And after I sent those videos, I said, I hope you enjoy living with that for the rest of your life. Payback is a you know what. So after I sent him those videos, I also sent it to the group chat that we had with everyone in it, meaning all the guys that I screwed and all of their girlfriends. Turns out the one that had gave it to me was actually Colin's very close friend, the one that I screwed the day after Samantha's party. But you have to remember, I was still hooking up with almost every single one of Colin's other friends. I hooked up with James once after that, but like I said, he started to feel bad. So pretty much I gave everybody an STD that they now have to live with for the rest of their life. And a month later, Colin had called me to come over to his house. And when I went over there, he said that he wasn't mad at me and he wanted to get back into a relationship with me again. And we got back together. I told you guys, that was going to be a crazy story time. I have thoughts and opinions, but we don't judge here. This is an open space, or at least know that I'm not judging you. People go through stuff, people do stuff that they might regret, they might not regret.
Story time about how I fell in love with my stepdad and married him. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I repeat, this is not my story time. My mom and dad divorced when I was 14 years old. This really affected me and I really wanted to move away from my parents. My mom has a tendency to be really controlling and my dad has always been like a really jealous dad. Like he never let me do anything fun or even let me hang out with boys. After they got divorced, I told my parents that I wanted to go to an art school. But not just any art school, this was a boarding school. I was really eager to get away from my parents and just basically have my own life. While I was in this art school, my mom actually remarried. So this guy became my stepdad. My mom told me that she was really in love with him and that everything was perfect. They would come visit me every now and then, so I did meet him a couple of times. Finally, when I was 18, I graduated and went back home. This is where things get really complicated. My mom owned 2 salons and was never home. My stepdad worked from home and was there all day. This meant that I had to spend a lot of time with him. Every now and then, he would ask me to go to dinner and to the movies, just like hang out. And before I knew it, I was developing feelings. Let me remind you again that I was 18. I knew that this was really bad. I mean, this was my mom's husband. But there was something about him I really liked. That's when he started opening up to me about how controlling my mom was in the relationship and how he was actually thinking of leaving her. Now, trust me, when he told me this, I was like, oh my God. But that's when I realized that he probably liked me too. I mean, we hung out all the time. And the vibes were there. I knew I had to get away, so I decided to go study abroad. But my stepdad and I kept in touch. He would email me and text me all the time. And before I knew it, we were talking every single day. One day I get a message from him saying that he caught my mom cheating. Now, honestly, this didn't surprise me because that's why my mom's relationship with my dad ended. He asked me to come home and I did. And when I saw him again, I realized that I actually was falling in love with him. Part 2 is that's when I realized that I had fallen in love with my stepdad. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I repeat, this is not my story time. At this point, I was 18 years old. He asked me to come home because he found out that my mom was cheating on him. He asked my mom for the divorce and she said yes. Apparently, my mom was actually going to move in with the guy that she was cheating on my stepdad with, which is a whole other story. My stepdad seemed brokenhearted, but at the same time really relieved. And because of this, we actually started spending more and more time together. Once the dust had settled, I decided to go back to school, which was in another country. And the whole time, my ex-stepdad and I kept in contact. We would talk on the phone almost every single day. Finally, when him and my mom were officially divorced, he actually started changing with me. He started going to the gym and even bought himself a new car. Oh yeah, and he got himself a condo. He started sending me selfies of him in the mirror and showing off his abs and stuff like that. At first, I was like, maybe this is innocent, but then I realized that he was definitely flirting with me. On my 20th birthday, I decided to go home and visit my mom. And yes, I knew that I would be seeing my stepdad. My mom and I had dinner and she told me that my stepdad was actually seeing other women. And this made me extremely jealous. My mom noticed it and asked me if I was upset. I said no, but she kept prying. Finally, I confessed to my own mother that I was in love with her ex-husband. Being the drama queen that my mother is, she instantly started to cry and told me that I was trying to ruin her life. She got up from the table and ran out of the restaurant. After that, my mom did not want to take my phone calls. So instead, I went over to my ex-stepdad's house, and I decided to just come out and tell him everything I felt about him. When I finished talking, he actually smiled and hugged me. He told me to just ignore my mom and that everything was going to be fine. He instantly made me feel so much better. And then he told me that he actually had feelings for me too. I mean, I was so happy, but at the same time, I knew that I couldn't be with him because of my mom. I also mentioned to him that my mom said that he was dating a bunch of other women, and he told me that he had been going out on some dates, but that he only ever thought of me. He then asked me if I wanted to give our relationship a shot. I didn't know what else to say except yes, because I was so happy. Then we became boyfriend and girlfriend secretly. Part 3 is up. So my ex-stepdad and I began a secret relationship. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I repeat, this is not my story time. At this point, I was 19 years old, and my ex-stepdad was 47. Since my mom was not speaking to me, I decided to send her an email. And I explained to her that I had every intention to date my ex-stepdad. Finally, a few months later, she called me back. Mind you, my mom had cheated on my ex-stepdad and that's why they got divorced. And she told me that she would accept the relationship. Then out of nowhere, she told me that I should start planning my wedding. Mind you, I had only been dating my ex-stepdad for a little bit. It feels weird calling him my ex-stepdad, so now I'll just call him my boyfriend. Now the problem is I get judgment from my entire family. My aunts and uncles hate my boyfriend, and I'm pretty sure my mom has been telling them that he's actually a cheater when she was the one that cheated. It's been 2 years now and I'm still with my boyfriend. But he recently asked me if I was open to getting married and I said yes. Now the problem is I don't know what to do about it. We discussed it at length and I basically told him that I think we should elope. He tells me that I'll regret it and that I should have my family there, but I know they hate him. I mean, it is a very weird situation, but they don't understand that I didn't grow up with him. I didn't meet him until I was 18 years old. When my mom found out that we were going to get married, she actually started planning the wedding without my consent. She even tried to pick out my wedding dress and the cake. So 2 weeks ago, my boyfriend and I actually eloped. We're married and literally nobody in my family knows. My mom still thinks she's planning the wedding, and I just don't know how to break it to her that there is no wedding. Should I keep the secret or should I tell my family? I really need help here, thank
I never really saw you coming until you turned me around. I used to think I was nothing, but look at this love we found. So give me your hand like you took mine. No, I don't ever wanna see you cry. Oh, yeah, no more tears. Oh, yeah, no more tears. Take that chance, we'll be fine. No, I don't ever wanna see you cry.
Here's a story time of how I caught my ex with another girl at a bar. And no, this is not my celebrity ex. So this guy and I had been together for quite a few years and we had a lot of trust in the relationship, but I was visiting my family in Florida. He was in New York where we lived. And he tells me that he's going to go have dinner with this mutual friend of ours who is a girl. He's hung out with her before. I know her and she studied at the same school that we studied in. So I didn't think anything of it and I just said, fine. He said they were going to have dinner, so about 8 hours passed, and I realized I hadn't heard from him in those 8 hours, so I text him and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Are you home? So he says, yes, I'm actually home now, and I tell him, so what were you guys doing for 8 hours? And he says, we had dinner, we were talking a lot, and blah, 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 blah. And I just want to say I wasn't jealous at all in the relationship. We had a lot of trust, so we never checked each other's locations, but this time my instinct told me different, so of course I went and I checked his location. He must have forgotten that we had our locations turned on, so guess what? Part 2 of how I caught my ex with another girl at a bar. So it's about midnight and he just told me that he was home, but my instinct told me differently, and I always trust my instinct. So I went and I checked his location, and it turned out that he was somewhere in Brooklyn, and we lived in Manhattan on the Upper East Side. So I take a screenshot and I send it to him, and guess what he does? He doesn't reply to my messages and proceeds to turn off his cell phone for the next 30 minutes. During those 30 minutes, he kept turning on his phone so I would see his updated location. So I would take a screenshot every time he moved, and I could tell that he was in a moving car, obviously trying to haul ass back to the apartment where he said he was. So as he kept turning it on and off, I kept taking screenshots every time he would turn it on. I was literally staring at my phone for those 30 minutes on the toilet. I was collecting all the proof so that he had no way of telling me that I was making things up or that I was wrong. So finally he turns his phone back on, and he's 2 blocks away from the apartment. Part 3 of how I caught my ex with another girl at a bar. So I can see from his location that he is now 2 blocks away from the apartment. So he calls me and pretends like nothing happened. And I said to him, "Hey, look, here are all the screenshots. Take a look and explain yourself." He knows he got caught at this point, so he started crying, hyperventilating, almost having a panic attack. And he always did this whenever I got upset at him. I decided to grill him anyway. He begins to explain that he was having dinner with her, and they then decided to go to a bar because they were having such a great time, and that he didn't want to tell me that he was at a bar because he thought that I would get suspicious. And I said, well, why would you do that instead of just telling me the truth when that would not have upset me? What upsets me is that I caught you lying to me and that you're at a bar in Brooklyn with some other girl. I definitely lost my trust, and I told him to send me a statement of the bar, a bank statement, anything that proved that he was at this bar at that time, which he didn't. Of course, yeah, we're no longer together. Yeah. Story time about how I found out my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend was spying on us in the bedroom. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My boyfriend and I have been together for 1 year. Our relationship is really good. We're like best friends and we tell each other everything. He always wants to spend time with me and we're planning on moving in together. Our families love each other and they're looking forward to us getting married someday. I'll call my boyfriend Dan. When Dan and I started dating, he told me that he had a really crazy ex. He was extremely controlling and didn't let him hang out with his friends or even his family. And when he broke up with her, she went nuts. She actually told her family that he was abusive just to get back at him. When we got together, Dan told me that he was scared his ex might try to do something to us. I told him not to worry, that she wouldn't do anything at all. Boy, was I wrong. Dan had his own apartment and I would stay at his place most nights. And of course, we did stuff in his bedroom. One night that we're on his bed doing stuff, I see a little tiny lens on his bookshelf pointing straight to us. I hadn't noticed it before, so I asked him what it was. He said he didn't know, so he went to it and pulled it out. It was a tiny little camera. Part 2 is up. When my boyfriend and I are doing the dirty on his bed, I notice there's a little lens pointing straight at us. He goes to grab it and we realize it's a little camera. The whole time we've been doing stuff on his bed, it's been recording us. That's when my boyfriend Dan said that it must have been his crazy ex. Let's call her Casey. He had told me that she was really crazy, but I didn't think she was that crazy. Dan starts looking throughout his whole apartment and he finds 2 more little cameras. One in the kitchen and one in the bathroom. As you can imagine, we didn't sleep that entire night. Of course, we went to the police and they opened an investigation, but they said they couldn't find anything. A week later, I get a DM from Casey, his ex-girlfriend. She starts abusing me through DM, calling me a bunch of names. She even said that I stole Dan from her, but I hadn't even met Dan when they broke up. Then she sends me a picture of my house, which means she knows where I live. I go straight to my boyfriend's apartment, and when I open the door, guess who's there? Casey is sitting on the couch with my boyfriend. It gets scarier. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend's crazy ex is sitting on the couch, and I'm terrified. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. She had just finished sending me a bunch of DMs on Instagram, totally abusing me. But my boyfriend didn't know this. I walk into the apartment and they're both sitting on the couch. She turns around and asks him, "Is that her?" My boyfriend looks at me with a serious face and says, "Yes, that's her." Then she shows me DMs on Instagram that I had supposedly sent to some guy, and that she passed herself off as this guy to see if I would fall. And the messages were so dirty and disgusting. I tell my boyfriend that's not me and that I would never do that to him. He just stares at me and doesn't say anything. That's when I try to show him all of the DMs that she had just sent me. But I noticed they were all gone. She actually unsent every single DM. Now I had no proof and it was just her word against mine. That's when I accused her of planting the cameras in our bedroom. She actually smiled at me and turned around and told my boyfriend she would never do that. Then she slapped me. My boyfriend's crazy ex slaps me and lunges at me. Of course, I start attacking her right back. My boyfriend separates us finally and asks both of us to leave his apartment. I was so crushed that he didn't believe me. So far, she had spied on us in bed, hacked my Instagram to send DMs to herself to make it look like I was talking to another guy, and threatened me by telling me that she knew where I lived. Oh yeah, and she physically attacked me too. I left my boyfriend's apartment and a few days later he comes looking for me. I explained everything to him and he said he had no choice but to believe me. His ex was too crazy. Then he told me that she went back to his apartment that night and picked his lock. She got naked and crawled into his bed. He woke up, kicked her out, and went straight to get a restraining order. He scanned his apartment for more cameras and found 2 more. What should we do?
I'm a stay-at-home mom and my husband works full-time. We have 3 kids and one of them is 2 years old. My husband helps a lot with the kids. He's a committed dad but is absolutely against babysitters due to an awful incident with the babysitter that is the reason his younger male cousin James got disabled years ago. I don't go out much since I have to take the kids with me and not every place is said it was unfair, and since he's a parent too, then he should stay also for the kids. He looked at me and said, "That's my best friend's wedding, you're asking this kid for Christ's sake. Are you kidding me?" Then said I was being petty for suggesting this, and I was basically choosing to go to a party over keeping our kids safe. He asked me to consider this a business trip, what I would do, go with him and leave the kids. I said I understand his paranoia of babysitters, but really, all my friends have sitters, and at times they're really needed. He said I ought to know better than what my friends tell me, and this wasn't enough for discussion. When I kept arguing, he called me selfish and said he won't let me ruin this relationship with his friend because I was being spiteful for not being able to attend, and that my brother will understand my situation. He keeps asking who's more important, a wedding party or my kids, and said I was being unreasonable for making my attendance the hill of the island. Am I the asshole for refusing to stay home with the kids when my husband attends my brother's wedding?
Story time about how my husband's mistress tried to mace me and kidnap me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Husband and I have been married for 4 months. So yeah, not very long. We dated for 2 years and everything was pretty much okay. At the beginning of the relationship, I had my doubts about him. I earn a lot more money than he does and he's always resented me for that. He makes comments and jokes about how I'm the one that brings the bacon home. Finally, I told him that he needed to stop doing that, especially in front of our friends and family. But other than that, we've had a really great relationship. I never thought that he was capable of ever cheating on me. We finally got married back in 2017. The wedding was so special and our families were there. Our honeymoon was amazing, and when we got back home, we both decided that we wanted to buy a house together. Or mostly, like, I decided to buy a house and he would give me some money. Obviously, this didn't bother me because I knew it was our forever home, so I didn't mind paying for it and having him help me with the rest. After we settled into our new home, my husband decided that he wanted to get a better paying job. Obviously, this made me really happy because it would give him more confidence if he was earning more money. He decided to switch to financing and he started working on Wall Street. 2 months after getting married, he started earning way more money than I did. This made him so happy. But he quickly started to change. He only bought expensive designer stuff. One thing I did notice was that he never invited me to go to his office. So like the good wife I am, I decided to surprise him at his office with lunch. And when I got there, I was greeted by his assistant. I didn't get worried because I didn't find her very attractive. She looked very plain Jane and homely. But when I finally saw my husband, I asked him why he didn't tell me that he finally got his assistant. He told me that he just forgot and he didn't think it was important. So I let it go. But I noticed that his assistant was trying to be overly nice to me. And she was also asking me a lot of questions about my husband. But like I said, I didn't feel insecure at all just because I didn't think she was very attractive. At the end of the year, my husband and I are invited to the Christmas party. Of course, his assistant is there, and she proceeds to get drunk and start telling me things like how I was so lucky to be married to my husband and how I should be more grateful to him. Obviously, I took offense. I went straight to my husband and told him what his assistant said to me. That's when my husband laughed it off and said that I was reading into it. 2 seconds later, he's in his office with her yelling at her. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my husband's mistress tried to mace me and kidnap me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. That's when I catch my husband yelling at his assistant. All I could make out was that he was telling her to keep her mouth shut when she was around me. Obviously, these were all red flags. I decided not to say anything for the rest of the night, but his assistant kept drinking the entire night. That's when my husband pulled her aside and told her to go home. She started crying and she tried to hold his hand, and that's when I knew it. They were having an affair. Mind you, I didn't suspect anything. I just thought she wasn't very pretty. She was very plain Jane. I didn't think that my husband would ever find her attractive. After she left the party, I decided to pull my husband aside and ask him what was going on. I asked him if he was having an affair with her, and he told me the truth. He said yes. Obviously, this was really heartbreaking. We hadn't been married long. That's when he told me that he wanted independence from me because I was the one that paid for everything, and that he wanted to feel like a man, and that because I earned more money and paid for everything, he felt less of a man. Wow, great excuse. He promised to break things off because he had no feelings for her, and that he actually felt bad for using her because she was falling in love with him. I told him that he needed to fire her right away. The following day, he fired her. But she shows up at our doorstep. But of course, my husband wasn't home. As soon as I open the door and see that it's her, she pulls out pepper spray and sprays me in the face. I fall to the floor and she grabs me by my ankles and drags me to her car. She was like scary strong. She opened up her trunk door and actually tried to pull me inside, but she couldn't lift me. Luckily, one of my neighbors was there and started yelling at her to leave me alone. That's when she got in her car and drove off. The police pulled her over 2 miles away. In her car, she had a shovel and an axe. She told the cops that she was planning on aliving me so that she could stay with my stupid husband. She went to jail and my husband and I are still together. Should I get a divorce? I don't know.
Am I wrong for breaking my promise to my husband and letting others meet our newborn before him? This already gave me red flag vibes. This is giving me manipulator vibes, but let's keep going. I, 25 female, moved away from my hometown to my husband's hometown, male 32, after we got married. The main reason is because he suffers from a medical chronic condition and needs to be near his family. Red flag number 2. I was pregnant with our first baby and was nearing my due date when my husband had to travel out of town for 2 weeks. Because of this, he couldn't be with me in the delivery room, which wasn't expected. I wanted to ask my mom to come with me, but he assured me that his family is there to help and I shouldn't be worried. Red flag number 3. He then made me promise that I don't let anyone see our son for the first time in person before him, besides his stepmom who was supposed to be there for me, and I agreed. Oh my god, what red flag are we on? I lost count. His stepmom was with me when I went into labor, but she stayed away since she is the type that doesn't get too involved and keeps her distance. She's also the I don't do diapers type, meaning she doesn't offer help with the baby and I shouldn't be expecting it. She dropped me and my son off at home and asked that I only call if there's an emergency. I felt helpless. I asked my neighbor for a few favors but needed real help with the baby, so I called my mom and asked if she could come help me with the baby. She drove 4 hours to come stay with me. She helped out tremendously and I'm so grateful for that. My husband stayed away for a few more days then came home. Once he saw my mom, he got so upset, repeatedly saying I broke the promise that I made to him by not letting others meet our son before him. I tried to explain that I needed the help and he brought up his stepmom, but I replied that she dropped me off and left. That's it. He said it wasn't about mom since it could have been anybody else, but it was about me disrespecting his wishes and breaking the promise I made. Oh, what the? Let me zoom in for this shit. He reminded me that he's also the parent and he gets to say too. At this point I said he was overreacting, but he replied that I forever tainted the memory of his son's birth and broke his trust and proved to him that my word is worth shit now. What red flag were we on? Someone remind me. Mom tried to give us space, but I said she did nothing wrong. She came to help after his stepmom left, so I can't be blamed for asking for help. He told me to stop giving him excuses and admit I wronged him with what I did, and then started avoiding me and just kept focusing his attention on our son. He keeps acting cold towards me, calling me a selfish promise breaker and expecting me to make it up to him. He wanted an apology, but I haven't given him that yet. So, am I wrong here?
A few years ago, I lost control of my car while driving down a super steep, super icy hill, and at the bottom of the hill, there were all these cars piled up that had crashed into each other because they had also lost control. And I thought, I don't want to hit the people, so I'm going to drive into that person's yard and hit their tree. But the one time in my life that I tried to jump a curb on purpose, my car was like, nah. And I bounced off the curb, spun around on the ice, and then slammed back into the curb, facing uphill on the wrong side of the road. I was like, I'm alive! And then I saw a huge truck, you know, the kind with the love handles on the side. He was barreling down the hill, also out of control, straight towards me. And I was like, oh no, I'm dead. I remember specifically thinking I didn't think I'd go out this way. But the truck had the same thought process I did, and he jumped the curb, slammed into the tree. And ever since that day, I have been scared of driving in the snow. My whole family makes fun of me for it. They were making fun of me for it last winter. We were all having dinner together, except for my youngest brother who was out snowboarding. And he called us from the ski resort place and he said, I have been injured and I want Katie to come pick me up. And of course my mother was like, help is on the way, dear. And he said, no, I want Katie to come pick me up. I said, oh, Mom, he probably just doesn't want to take you away from the family on Christmas. But on the inside, I was like, ha-ha, losers. Who did he pick? Me. Not you, not Hermione, me. Who's the favorite sister? I am. Suck it. I said, I'm coming to get ya. And then I continued eating my dinner because in my defense, the damage was already done and I was eating wings. But my family was like, no, Kate, you have to go now. So I abandoned my wings to the vultures that are my family, hopped in my car, drove 2 miles an hour through a snowstorm to rescue baby brother. My big brother was in the car with me and he kept saying, can't you drive faster? And I was like, I don't want to die. There were cars and ditches leading all the way up to the ski resort. I kept having to roll down my window and say, listen, I'm just here to pick up a body. I'm not going to ski. We get baby brother, we take him to the ER, and I said, I'm really flattered that you picked me out of the whole family to come pick you up. And he said, oh, I just know you drive the slowest in the snow and you'd be the least likely to panic and die coming to pick me up. And that made me really happy too, because it was the first time in my life anybody had ever nominated me least likely to panic. I'm always panicking. And I said, you know what? After all this, I'm going to get you ice cream. But baby brother is 6'5" and built like a lumberjack. I think he's 6'5". He always says he's shorter than he is because he's a few centimeters shy of 6'5". And he's like, I don't want to be that guy who lies about his height. And I try to explain to him that after you clear 6'3", everyone's too scared to call you on your height. This Thor-looking mother trucker looked at me and said, I don't really do ice cream. And I was like, and he said, I mean, yes, could you please buy me some ice cream to make me feel better? And I said, yeah.
Am I the asshole for not getting my friend a $200 gift and making her feel unloved? My 28 male friend, 27 female, is usually a very kind person. But we recently got into a stupid argument about a gift. My friend is obsessed with the 5 love languages and she always asks people what their love language is and she does her best to show love by using your love language. She says that her love language is receiving gifts, so everyone should put a lot of thought into her gifts. I thought that I did. She likes this one brand of artisan coffee from a local shop, so I bought her a big bag of that coffee from the store and a nice mug. Cost about $45 in total. We did our exchange 1 week ago and she seems so disappointed. Am I the asshole for not getting my friend a $200 gift and making her feel unloved? She likes this one brand of artisan coffee from a local coffee shop, so I thought a big bag of coffee from that store and a nice mug would be nice. It costed $45 in total. We did our gift exchange 1 week ago and she seemed so disappointed when she opened her gift. I asked her what was wrong and she asked how much I spent on the gift. I told her and she said she was expecting a nicer gift, preferably about $200. She said that my cheap gift meant that she felt unloved because receiving gifts is her love language. That pissed me off. I called her selfish and materialistic and took the gifts from her. I left without opening mine and now we haven't spoken in days.